the European Commission has introduced a comprehensive plan for rearming the EU and supporting Ukraine with €800 billion. The document includes 5 key initiatives. The first step is the release of state funds to finance the defence industry at the national level. According to President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, this will allow EU member states to increase defence spending without triggering the excessive deficit procedure and will free up to €650 billion over 4 years. The second step involves the creation of a new financial instrument that will provide EU member states with €150 billion in loans for defence investments. These funds will be used for the procurement of air defence systems, artillery systems, missiles, ammunition, drones, and anti-drone systems. This equipment could be quickly delivered to Kiev, emphasised the President of the European Commission. The third initiative will enable EU countries to use funds to increase defence spending. The fourth and fifth points of the plan focus on attracting private capital, expanding the investment market, and using mechanisms of the European Investment Bank.
Europe is ready to assume its responsibilities. Rearm Europe could mobilize close to €800 billion of defence expenditures for a safe and resilient Europe. We will, of course, continue working closely with our partners in NATO. This is a moment for Europe, and we are ready to step up.
EU leaders are planning to discuss European defence issues at an extraordinary summit on March 6th. According to Financial Times, one of the main topics of the meeting is the initiative to create a European Rearmament Bank, or a special fund for pan-European defence sector financing. Its primary goal will be to provide loans for military equipment purchases and fund industrial defence projects. The initiative is expected to involve the United Kingdom as well.
We see that Europeans understand that as long as Ukraine can endure, it means time gained for France, for Europe, to deploy a new system with more finances, more weapons. Protecting Ukraine also means protecting themselves and reducing the risks of an attack from the Kremlin.
The French president has urged EU countries to invest €200 billion in the continent's defence. In an interview with Il Foglio, he clarified that this amount will be needed at the initial stage. Emmanuel Macron also stated that EU member states should aim to increase defence spending to 3 to 3.5% of gross domestic product.
Ukraine has shown that it can survive, that it will be willing to fight, willing to defend its existence, because this is about Russia wanting to wipe Ukraine off the map. But it is also about Russia wanting to wipe the current European security order off the map. So we will have to collectively defend Ukraine, help Ukraine even more than we have done before.
Europe must not only increase support for Ukraine, but also tighten economic pressure on the aggressor state, say Kyiv's partners. This could also be part of Ukraine's security guarantees. According to Financial Times, discussions have already begun within the EU about the possible confiscation of frozen Russian assets in Europe if Moscow violates a future ceasefire agreement with Ukraine. Reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Kyiv and Paris are discussing the possibility of using profits from frozen Russian assets to invest in joint weapons production. This proposal was raised during a meeting between Ukrainian Deputy Minister of Defense for European Integration Serhiy Boyev and Pierre Heilbronn, the French President's special envoy for Ukraine's relief and reconstruction. According to Boyev, Ukraine's most urgent needs include air defense and missile defense systems, interceptor missiles, heavy armored vehicles and ammunition.
In addition to investments and developing production, Ukraine is also interested in purchasing ready-made weapons. Our needs remain significant. The situation on the front is dynamic, so we require fast solutions. Continuing support from our partners and their readiness to increase it are crucial for us. Ukraine must remain strong on the battlefield. This is essential for achieving lasting peace. Serhiy Boyev, Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine for European Integration. on the ministry's website.
The use of profits from frozen Russian assets was also raised during a meeting between the presidents of France and the United States at the White House. Donald Trump claimed that Ukraine is supposedly repaying Europe for financial assistance, whereas the US, according to him, receives nothing in return. French President Emmanuel Macron countered, explaining that the EU partially offsets funds sent to Kyiv with the profits from frozen Russian assets.
We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will have paid for that.
Since the freezing of Russian assets following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the aggressor state, Kyiv's partners have focused solely on the use of profits generated from these assets. Experts know that European leaders have been wary of full confiscation, fearing it could undermine international trust in the EU's financial system. However, calls to seize all frozen Russian assets are growing. Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna recently stated that Europe must use all available frozen Russian assets. His position has been supported by Latvia, Lithuania, Denmark, Sweden, Poland and the Czech Republic. According to analysts, the idea of full confiscation is gaining momentum within the EU.
One is obviously a renewed debt. The historical example that's always given is the emergency credit that the European Union took to fight the economic consequences of the pandemic a couple of years ago, 5 years ago to be exact. And the other track which the European Union is considering is, confiscating the frozen Russian assets, which are more than 200 billion euros and are held in the European Union, most of them actually in Belgium.
Analysts believe that a revision of the strategy regarding frozen Russian assets may begin on March 6 during the European Leaders' Summit on Defense. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas stated that reaching consensus on this issue is still a long way off. But more and more countries are becoming open to the idea of confiscation.
So I am not that optimistic that we will reach an agreement in March. But at the same time, I must say the work is ongoing. And I must also say that during this Foreign Affairs Council, there was one more country that came who used to be against moving on with this and came on board, because this is what I've always said. Eventually, especially in the situation where we are right now, then eventually we all come to the conclusion that our taxpayers shouldn't be the one who are paying for this. It should come from the country that destroys Ukraine, which is Russia. Glory to Ukraine.
By the end of 2027, the G7 countries have committed to providing Ukraine with a 50 billion euros loan, financed by profits from frozen Russian assets. According to analysts at the Ukrainian Center for Economic Research, Ukraine's budget could allocate 5 to 7 billion euros from this loan for defense spending in 2025. Reported by Serhiy Kulas, Andriy Dmytrenko, UATV News.